Hi everyone. I'm Anuja and I'm a herpetologist from India. I currently work on freshwater turtle ecology in the Brahmaputra Basin in Assam. And today I'll be talking about our citizen science initiative that my co-author Sneha Hari and I have been working on for the past 4 years. Broadly speaking, citizen science is the collection of any data relating to the natural world by the general public in collaboration with scientists or researchers. So today I'll be talking about how we can use this as a tool to address knowledge gaps in Indian freshwater chelonians. So the India Biodiversity Portal is the largest repository of biodiversity information in India right now with over 1.4 million observations across 57,000 species. So you can check it out at indiabiodiversity.org. And the sheer volume of these observations can be easily visualized on an interactive WebGIS module, like these enhanced density heat maps. And you can check extent of occurrence with filter capabilities of over 50,000 species. Now, the greatest thing about IBP is that all the content is free and open access and it's distributed under a Creative Commons license. And IBP also contributes data to GBIF. The observation user interface is very easy to use and it can generate progressive web apps now for every group on Android and iOS devices. At IBP, anyone can identify observations, and we also have a group of admins, moderators who curate observations in a peer review process. And each of these 50,000 species have a dedicated species page. There's also leaderboards, forums to receive feedback from users, and many more features. So this truly makes it a really accessible, easy to use, and informative portal. Now, IBP has different groups, and Sneha and I co-founded the Freshwater Turtles and Tortoises of India, or FTTI group, in 2016. So we wanted to specifically curate all freshwater Chelonian observations on the portal in one dedicated group. You can check it out at ftti.indiabiodiversity.org, and this is what our homepage looks like. So we just crossed 500 peer-reviewed observations, and these don't include our checklist records. And we also have automatic obfuscation of locations for conservation concern, such as the Indian star tortoise. And the great thing about FTTI network is that Sneha and I have interacted personally with most of our 187 users. So we believe FTTI is a platform where we all interact equally. We don't consider citizens as just data gatherers. We consider them as equal contributors. They have the same responsibilities as us, and we're now involving them in the process towards building a well-informed community on freshwater Chelonians. So Sneha and I took a very hands-on role with IBP in developing FTTI 2019 onwards, and we started social media outreach through Facebook and Instagram to increase our participation. We recently updated all our 29 species in May, and this now provides comprehensive information with citations, references, and anyone can access this through the website. We also have a dedicated FTI progressive web app that is linked to the entire India Biodiversity portal, and this is available again on Play Store and on the iOS browsers. And this is what our species list looks like. If you click on each one, you'll get all the information. And this is our observation creation interface. We also have our unique turtle spotting week campaigns that we run a week before World Turtle Day. We had this in 2019 and 2020, and this is mainly to increase awareness on freshwater chelonians, which have been massively ignored and understudied in India for decades. So now what I'm going to be showing today is just exploratory analysis to give you a glimpse of what we can do and how we can utilize citizen science data from IBP. The methods were really simple. Finding the time was a bit difficult. IBP allows anyone to download a CSV file of any observation record they want. And so in mid-July, I filtered 462 observations from 471 for this talk specifically. And I selected only those with accurate location data and that were identified to species level. And I analyzed this in our software and did the mapping in QGIS. So now starting with year-wise observation created records, we had observations right from 2012, and you can see that the numbers drastically increased from the start of 2019. What changed basically was the dedicated, unique social media presence that Sneha and I have curated, and the results are pretty clear over here. So we also did a 2-sample t-test to check the effect of outreach before and after 2019. And we saw a significant increase of up to 88% observations from 2019. So I also created a time series of observations on FTTI from 2012 to 2020, just so that you all can visualize the areas across India. India is a huge country. So just so that you all can see where we started to get the most participation from and across the years. Heat mapping analysis of species diversity and abundance showed 3 significant freshwater turtle hotspots, as we know from published literature in the recent years. But we can now call these real-time turtle priority areas. Essentially, what we're seeing is high diversity rates in regions that overlap, like here, the Eastern Himalayas and the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot. But what we're also seeing is a kind of edge effect with the Western Himalayas overlapping with the Upper Gangetic Plains. And of course, the Western Ghats is a well-established biodiversity hotspot, supporting all of India's 3 endemic species. Moving on, state-wise observation trends also again reveals the Ganges River system represented by the state of Uttar Pradesh, which had the most records. Assam, which represents the Brahmaputra River basin with 57 records, and then Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu represent the southern states, which where the Western Ghats are present, and we had significant observations from there as well. So what our maps revealed were large areas where there is a lack of observation data or bias. And we do have more contributions for popular visited areas or wildlife sanctuaries like Kaziranga in Assam or Bharatpur, and also from states where we have better internet literacy in India. And in when we look at species richness, Assam has we've reported 14 out of 21 species. There are many more rare and cryptic species, but they are not yet reported. Uttar Pradesh reports 14 out of 15 species in the Ganges River system, which is pretty great. And Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, representing the Western Ghats, show 7 species. So when we look at species-wise trends now, obviously the first thing we see is that the species that bask are at the top end, and this represents a visual encounter bias from users. And it's also because these are the most common species that are present in India. So you have all the 4 puncturas and the Ganges softshell as well. The Indian black pond turtle and the flapshell turtle, we recorded them in really high numbers from across the country in a wide variety of habitats. What is interesting is that we expected the Travancore tortoise and the Cochin cane turtle that are supposed to be rare endemic to be at the tail end, but we do have some decent records of these on the FTTI group as well. Now, I went on to try to do some preliminary point pattern analysis with our location records, and we did density analysis to look at the spatial arrangement. We overlaid this with a protected area network to get a better understanding of how many species are actually limited to protected areas. And in the future, there's a lot more we can do with this. We can relate this density to underlying covariates like time, land use patterns, and even possibly predict areas of high turtle density. I then also did hotspot mapping and cluster analysis, which I overlaid with the major river systems of India and also the protected area network again. So now these clusters at scales of about 100 to 125 kilometers for this talk. These species abundance patterns are really needed to work towards landscape level conservation of river stretches and wetlands that serve as turtle priority areas in a way, but at much lower regional scales. So to quickly look at India's 3 unique endemic species, I plotted their locations on Western Ghats layer, the stream system, and the Western Ghats basin area. So Travancore tortoises with the purple or blue diamonds, we had 18 records, 8 records of the Cochin cane turtle, and 11 records of the Leith softshell turtle. These points are at really huge scale, so they're kind of overlapped here right now. The Cochin cane turtle anyway has a very restricted range and specific habitat requirements, but we saw that they're mostly restricted to protected areas, whereas the Travancore tortoise is kind of more spread out and even present outside protected areas. The leaf social that you'll see in this area is because of what my colleague Sneha presented earlier. She's been networking and a lot of awareness activities. So now our collaborators on their own upload their rescue data to FTTI directly. We also have a record from Tadoba in Central India, which again highlights Neha's point that we know so little about the real-time status of this rare endemic species. And a lot of you might be wondering why this Travancore tortoise is chilling here on the East Coast. And if any of you have any guesses, you can leave your answers in the chat box or in the comments. So we had the most observations for the Indian black pond turtle, Melanochelys trijuca, and I thought it'd be interesting to check the temporal distribution. What we see is that the early monsoon and the monsoon period shows a clear activity peak. And a large number of these records also are hatchlings on the group. So in the future, if we further classify this data, we'll get further insights into nesting, hatching seasons, and there are many subspecies in India of this species. So it would be interesting to look at the different timings and seasons of each subspecies. So for a widespread species like Melanochelys trijuca, we also see that across India, the number of observations increases with an increase in the average monthly rainfall, fully across the country. And I quickly want to share some interesting life history observations we have on FTTI, a trigger warning for the next slide. We have a roadkill of a black pond turtle by Yatin Kalki from the outskirts of Bangalore city. So IVB has a specific group called the Roadkill Network, which documents clusters where majority of roadkills occur, and that can later inform conservation management. We have many red-eared slider observations on FTTI, and here's one from Bangalore by Gopa Kumar. And IBP also again has a specific group called Spotting Invasive Alien Species, and it has over 3,000 records of alien species in India. And this data is mapped and again is crucial data for conservation interventions in the future. And moving to Northeast India, the pristine rivers and forests in Dibang Valley in Arunachal Pradesh are currently under threat by hydropower plants. So students and activists are every day campaigning online against it. We have a researcher friend, Jayanta, who has documented a population of keel box turtles, and he uploaded this adorable juvenile on our group. And this basically helps us document endangered species in their wild habitats that are at the risk of being lost. Now, literature suggests that the crown river turtle or Hardella thurgi almost is never seen basking, but here we have an interesting record of an adult basking by Tirthankar from a wetland in West Bengal. And we have been reading over and over, especially by a lot of foreign scientists and the government of India, that Ganges soft shells are voracious scavengers. They clean up dead bodies left, right, and center in the Ganga. But there has barely been any photographic documentation by them over the decades. And so here we have an amazing photo of there are actually two Ganges soft shells, if you all can make out, that are scavenging on a sambar deer. And this was by Yuvraj, who is a well-known wildlife photographer. And last but not least, the supposedly extinct and wild black softshell turtle. I am currently working on this species to document it in the wild. And this was photographed right in its element on the dry river beds of Paki Tiger Reserve in Arunachal Pradesh. And it was captured by 360-degree cameras that my friend Ramaluri had set up. So to quickly summarize, we know that our dedicated, unique social media presence is building our network of citizen scientists, so much so that other organizations in India are now waking up and following suit. So that's really great. More data, the merrier, and as long as it's open access. We also identified real-time turtle hotspots and have also identified regions that are not in protected areas. So for a start, the temporal distribution of a widespread species showed increased monsoon activity, and this can be replicated for other species. This can then reveal more life history information, subspecies, geographical limits, etc. We also aim to curate all these life history traits and help our users publish this information, and we work together to make more important discoveries. So scope for the future, long-term plans include monitoring the turtle priority areas at landscape levels with ecological surveys, of course, in regional sites, and with a special focus on endemic and Northeast India species that have been really neglected for decades. We are in the process of disseminating content specific to regions and in regional languages, as Neha mentioned. And we are also working really hard to improve our representation in our gap areas that we have identified. So at IBP, at IBP, we believe that some data is still better than no data. And as we gather more and more data over time, then we can understand it better. So to end, I would like to acknowledge the following people, especially my funding agencies, MetaString Foundation that runs India Biodiversity Portal, and all the 187 citizen scientists who have contributed to this talk. And thank you. So this is an adult red-crowned roof turtle, Buttergood Katjuga, in its breeding colors from Rajasthan by Dharmendra Kandral on our group. So please do check out our group today. And thank you. If anybody has any questions, I think I have some time. So someone has asked, the web portal requests accurate location data. The data is downloadable. How do you make sure web data is not used as a roadmap for poaching efforts? So firstly, there are two options. You can either choose accurate location data or approximate location data. And if you yourself, there is an option to geo-enable privacy. So you can hide the location data and it will give a very broad radius for that location for that species that you're uploading. But for some species like Indian star tortoise or flapshell turtle, the location data is automatically masked by the portal itself. So this is one way that we're ensuring that it's not used by poachers. Another question. Yeah, no, that's it. Any more questions? I hope that answers your question, Mr. Peter Paul Van Dyke. Okay, I think I'll stop now.